FedEx, a company valued at over $50 billion. They just experienced a huge loss because Frederick W. Smith, the founder and CEO of FedEx, recently passed away on June 21st, 2025. You might wonder if this will affect FedEx's stock price. In the short term, it might, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Instead, I want to talk about him as one of the most inspiring business people in the world.
Fred Weiss Doppus left a truly lasting mark on the empire.
The question is, was he from a rich family? Yes, he was, but he was also an orphan, and he was a child born with a painful disease, which he managed to overcome. He was a kid who got his pilot's license at just 15 years old. He was one of only 3 people who survived the Vietnam War. He was the one who built and pulled FedEx up from the jaws of hell until it became the world's largest delivery company. Today, support the inspiring information that I, Sai, got from the world-famous brand FedEx by scanning this QR code. Or if you want to support the Sai Money Monster channel, it's easy. Just leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. Next time, let's try thinking differently, and we'll see each other again. Thank you. On the day of April 17th, 1973, marks the official launch of FedEx. 14 airplanes were lined up at Memphis International Airport, ready to deliver a total of 186 packages to 25 different states throughout various regions of the United States. That air shipment captured national headlines because it was a revolution in air transportation, and the news quickly spread throughout the entire United States. Because that was the very first time that packages could be delivered as fast as within 24 hours, when before people had to wait for up to 10 days.
But on that day, something unexpected occurred and things changed.
Despite its impressive launch, would you believe a business that started so grandly saw losses of $29 million in its first 2 years? FedEx almost went under because they didn't have enough to pay expenses. The last bit of money FedEx had left in its account was just $5,000. That was the most depressing and stressful time for Frederick because he was desperately trying to figure out how to keep FedEx, the company he had built, alive, along with the hundreds of loyal employees who depended on him. He kept wondering if this was all his fault, since the business plan he was following for FedEx was actually the same one he had once submitted to his professor back in college. And the professor had given him a failing grade because the professor had already told him that what he was proposing was impossible. Looking back at his early childhood, Severt Wallet Smith was orphaned from the young age of only 4 years old. When he was little, he had arthritis, a type that severely affected his hips. It caused poor blood circulation to his hips, which was incredibly painful for him to endure. Frederick could barely walk. He always had to use a brace or crutches. But Frederick never gave in to his condition. He steadfastly continued with his physical therapy. With perseverance, he was eventually able to overcome his illness and was cured by the time he was 10 years old. In high school, Frederick was an energetic kid. He once started a business in his garage, turning it into a recording company called Art and Record Company. It was just something fun he did with his friends, but it ended up growing bigger than they expected. However, by 1962, everyone went their separate ways because it was time to graduate from high school and move on to college. Frederick got accepted into the economics program at Yale University. In the economics program, there was a requirement to write a business plan and submit it to the professor, right? In his 3rd year, Frederick wrote a business plan and submitted it to his economics professor at Yale. Frederick loved airplanes. He had gotten his pilot's license when he was just 15. So when he entered the economics program, he realized that one thing he wanted to do was revolutionize air parcel delivery. Back then, in the United States, if anyone wanted to send a package quickly, they had to send it by plane. But the thing was, if you wanted to send something by plane, you had to rely on commercial airlines. That made it hard to predict schedules, right? And the shipping was slow too. So if you wanted to send something urgently, you were out of luck. That's why Frederick came up with a business plan called the hub and spoke system. His approach sounded really simple. If we want to send parcels by air, why bother with commercial airlines? We should just buy our own planes, 7 of them in fact. Yes, buy jet planes and use airports as hubs for transportation. But the trick is to use the airports during off-peak hours, which is at night when things aren't so busy. You have to pick airports with good locations to serve as hubs. Then, after the planes land at different airports, you use trucks to pick up the parcels and deliver them right to the recipient's doorsteps. With this method, Frederick said that parcels could be delivered on schedule, within a set time frame, and parcels could be delivered right to the recipient's hands within just 24 to 48 hours. The professor read through this business plan, listened to the presentation, and then immediately gave it a grade, an F. The professor said that this plan was impossible. Frederick was really disappointed and pretty upset when he found out his grade. But Derek felt like, no way, this isn't true. The plan I came up with is awesome. I'm going to go out there and make it happen to prove that I'm right. And the person who's wrong is the professor who gave me that F. But right after he graduated in 1966, Derek didn't get the chance to follow through with that business plan. He was sent to serve in the Vietnam War for 3 whole years with the U.S. Marine Corps. At that time, the Vietnam War was really intense. Of course, in war, life and death are on the line. He even almost lost his life once when he was attacked by the Viet Cong. While he was in the military, honestly, Enoch also wasn't really focused on fighting that much. What Frederick focused on was that he was interested in how the military transported supplies. Frederick noticed that there were actually a lot of things that could be improved to make the transportation of fuel and supplies faster or more convenient. And another thing Frederick got really interested in while he was in the military was playing blackjack. He played blackjack so much and got so good at it that he became famous in the military for it. Like, hey, Frederick was really good at playing blackjack. Of course, he played blackjack just for fun, to relieve stress, to distract himself from the harsh realities of war, and find a little bit of enjoyment here and there. But at that time, to be honest, Frederick had no idea that the blackjack he played just for fun would one day become the game that would change his destiny. Later, in 1970, Frederick was finally discharged from the military. He said he was really fed up with war, destruction, and all the bombings. He wanted to do something more creative. So, after leaving the army, Frederick went to work at Suss Aviation Sales, which was his father-in-law's aviation repair service business. Already aviation savvy, he got his pilot's license at 15 and flew in the military. He shifted the company from airplane repair to aircraft sales, which was highly profitable. However, this didn't click with Frederick. Deep down, he still felt a passion and recalled the business plan submitted in his junior year, the one he got a C on. Frederick still wanted to make it happen. So what was in that plan? Did he specify buying 14 jets? So what do? To start, you need to buy 14 jets. Where are you going to get the money for that? Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Redlich came from a wealthy family. So he did have the money to buy jets, but not enough to buy 14 of them. So Fred had to go out and raise funds as well. He took his business plan and pitched it to investors. And it turned out that the investors invested their money in 1972. Frederick was able to use the business plan he wrote to raise as much as $91 million from investors. That's no small amount, especially in 1972. Once he got the funding, the very next thing he had to do was what? When you get money, you have to make it grow, right? So what Frederick did was look for customers. And the customers he went after, he was very confident that this business would definitely succeed. He went after the country's biggest client. He approached the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States. At that time, Frederick saw the pain point of the central bank. The Fed, being the central bank, had the responsibility to handle financial transactions with the whole world. Back then, when payments were made, they were done by check. And these checks, to send a physical check to the other party, they had to send them by plane, but it took a really long time. Sometimes it could take up to 10 days. So Frederick went to pitch to the Fed, saying, if you use my business model for sending checks, instead of waiting 10 days, it'll only take 24 hours. Fed, are you interested? And yes, the Fed agreed. That's how Frederick landed his very first client, the Fed. He felt an immense sense of pride and accomplishment after successfully securing the Federal Reserve as his primary client. This prestigious partnership served as the direct inspiration for him when he eventually decided on naming his new company the Federal Express Corporation. But, oh well, maybe the Fed didn't really like that name or something? I'm not sure. But before any operations even started, the Fed withdrew from being FedEx's client. So in 1994, Federal Express Corporation changed its name. They stopped using that name and switched to the nickname everyone already used for the company, FedEx. As for FedEx's target, their main mission is express delivery of parcels. And then on April 17, 1973, FedEx officially opened for business for the very first time. 14 jet planes, which were part of their so-called Grade C business plan, were lined up at Memphis Airport, ready to take off and deliver a total of 186 packages to 25 cities across the United States. Overnight air delivery within 24 hours was truly a revolution in air transportation. It quickly became big news all across the country. But whether it was just bad timing, or maybe they didn't pick an auspicious date to launch the business, less than a year after FedEx's grand and impressive debut, a crisis hit that nearly brought the company to its knees. The OPEC oil crisis hit when OPEC imposed an embargo on countries they believed were supporting Israel. Of course, the United States was one of those countries and got hit by the embargo as well. Because of this crisis, global oil prices skyrocketed, shooting up to 4 times higher than before. And the main operating cost for FedEx was, of course, the fuel for their 14 jet planes. So at that time, the price FedEx had to pay for fuel reached an all-time high, right along with the global oil prices. At that time, oil prices just kept going up and up with no sign of stopping, or even any indication that they might go down. Back then, it was only around 1970-something, and if you look at this graph, you'll see that oil prices didn't peak until 1980, so there were still several years to go from that point. And the one who had to deal with all of this was FedEx. They were losing about $30,000 a day, which meant that in the first 26 months, FedEx had accumulated losses of up to $29 million. At that point, Frederick tried to raise more funds for FedEx, but it was nearly impossible. Just impossible because the situation had turned into an oil crisis. Everything was volatile, the economy wasn't doing well, and investors didn't have any confidence. Everyone knew that FedEx's main cost was fuel, so nobody dared to take the risk. Nobody wanted to invest more money in FedEx at that point. Things got so bad that Frederick had to ask his loyal employees, saying, "I'm paying you by check, but is it possible for you to hold on to the checks as long as possible, just to keep the company going?" It got to the point where pilots or truck drivers sometimes had to use their own credit cards to pay for fuel up front because they knew the company had almost no money left. And the fuel bills came in every week. At that time, on Friday, the fuel bill arrived. It was $24,000. Like I said, at that time, FedEx had very little money left. The fuel bill was $24,000, but the amount left in the company account was only $5,000. But Frederick didn't give up. He knew exactly how little money he had left, and more importantly, he knew he had to pay that weekly fuel bill. So he decided he would fly out to meet a businessman at General Dynamics in Chicago, because he was confident that if he could get funding from General Dynamics, he would be able to survive for at least another 2 or 3 weeks. So he grabbed his best suit, got on a plane to Chicago, and headed straight to General Dynamics. And it turned out that he was denied. No one would give it to him. The reason was the oil situation. It was just too volatile. Nobody wanted to take the risk. So he had to get back on a plane from Chicago and return. At that point, he felt really discouraged and completely stuck. Like, hey, the company only has $5,000 left in the account. How am I supposed to pay a $20,004 bill? And what made him even more depressed was thinking about all the hundreds of employees who had been working for him all this time. Are they all going to lose their jobs? Because this is what he thought. He thought, there has to be a way. Not yet. He's not going back to Memphis just yet. Regardless of whether he wins or loses, he has to fight first. We have to do it like a fighter first. So then, Brack just went ahead and booked a ticket right away. Las Vegas. On the flight to Las Vegas, Frederick tried to encourage himself. I think this is an incredibly powerful and effective technique. When you feel like you've reached a complete and total dead end, one thing you absolutely have to do is try to remember the positive and wonderful experiences that have happened in your life. What Frederick thought about on that flight was, why couldn't he do it? He was a kid who had successfully overcome several very painful illnesses. He was a kid who managed to get a license. He'd been flying since he was 15. He was a high school kid who managed to build a successful recording company. He graduated from Yale with a degree in economics, and he survived the Vietnam War. Of course he could do this. So as soon as the plane landed, Frederick headed straight to the casino. And when he got to the casino, the place that Frederick walked straight to was the Blackjack table. He immediately withdrew $5,000 in cash and put it all on the table. This was a skill he picked up from the Vietnam War. And as soon as he sat down, with the money burning a hole in his pocket, he kept losing, then winning, then losing again, and winning it back. In the end, he managed to make a total of $35,000. At that moment, Frederick decided to stop. He quit because that amount of money was enough to pay for the fuel. He wasn't greedy enough to keep playing for more because he was also worried that the $35,000 he'd just won might disappear just as quickly. However, as I mentioned earlier, the fuel bill comes every single week, so that $35,000 wasn't actually enough to save the company in the long run. It could only keep FedEx afloat for another 7 days before the next massive fuel bill arrived. But still, it bought them 7 more days, giving Frederick the necessary time to come up with a completely new strategy to save the business. And then a miracle happened. Just 2 weeks after that, Frederick managed to secure a new investment for FedEx worth as much as $11 million. That allowed FedEx to turn a profit for the first time in 1976. After that, FedEx went all in. During the chaotic 1970s, when the economy was struggling, other shipping companies played it safe and didn't take any big risks or make bold moves. But FedEx was different. FedEx went all in, doing everything the exact opposite of everyone else. Frederick said himself that he was willing to take risks and expand his business right then and there. He doubled down when no one else dared to. At that time, FedEx spent more on advertising than any other shipping company. They launched a huge campaign, and it was a big success because they were able to raise customer awareness way ahead of the competition. So they were able to capture a massive share of the market from other companies during that time as well. While everyone else was too afraid to take risks or do anything, FedEx was willing to go all in. That meant they were growing at a time when there was little to no competition. Plus, they were bold enough to spend on advertising when customers barely even knew about other brands. Basically, FedEx got into customers' hearts first, which gave them a huge advantage. By 1976, FedEx was shipping as many as 19,000 packages a day, which allowed them to attract major clients. Some of their biggest and most prominent customers included IBM and even the United States Air Force. Frederick had proven that the business plan he once submitted to his professor and got a C for wasn't impossible after all. The professor was wrong. It really was possible, and it's still true to this day. The company that the professor once said was impossible managed to reach a stock value as high as $217 per share. This made FedEx a company worth over $50 billion, employing nearly 500,000 people worldwide. They own more than 700 airplanes and have over 200,000 FedEx vehicles. FedEx has become a hugely important company in the global supply chain, even to the point that even the transportation of agricultural products or Thai SMEs have to rely on FedEx. And importantly, FedEx is also the largest shipping company in the world. This story teaches us that if someone tells you you can't do it, it's impossible, I think they're not necessarily wrong. But if we believe what they say, even though we haven't even started or tried yet, I'd say that's exactly what's wrong.